Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective, hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Cory, and our local draft expert, Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening. Fans. Fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey, and in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. There are now three things to really be focusing on in the NHL world. The World Championships, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and the draft. Well, the upcoming draft, that is. Dom, I wanted to give you the room to explain to our wonderful audience and to me, frankly, how this draft works, what the Sharks are going to do, and anything else you wanted to share that we simply must know. So it's time for the return of In the Tank with Dom.
Well, thanks, Cory. We're totally mixing it up, starting with an In the Tank, and I'm honestly happy to do it because I know I mentioned last time talking a little bit about the lottery process because the Sharks, while having the best odds to win the draft lottery this season from finishing last, they actually did not win the draft lottery. However, they didn't necessarily lose it either, and I'll explain because it's actually very unique how there's two sets of draws that determine how everyone ends up. The Sharks will end up picking second overall after first overall was won by the Islanders, jumping up that maximum of 10 spots.
Sorry.
No, you're all good. Now, for those who don't know, the 16 teams that do not qualify for the playoffs are all put into the lottery. However, not every single one of those teams is actually eligible to win the first overall pick. Nonetheless, they each have chances to win. And really what this does is gives a chance for teams to move up. And I think, Cory, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is designed to de-incentivize tanking or the intentional losing, not to be confused with In the Tank with Dom. No. Intentionally losing games, trying to better your draft pick. And in this case, like for the Sharks this year, I believe they had an 18.5% chance of winning the first overall pick. However, technically, it was actually 25.5%. And that's because for the teams 12th through 16th, their chances of winning the lottery, had they won the first draw, they can only move up a maximum of 10 spots. So even though they would technically win the lottery, the Sharks would still hold the first overall pick. And so it's a very unique system where there is some protection for those top teams, that the teams that just missed and were on the playoff bubble can't get all the way up to the first pick. So no matter if it's in the first draw or the second draw, which I'll explain here, you can only move up a maximum of 10 spots. It's also a new rule that was added here recently, I believe in 2020 or 2021. Yes, the set of rule changes in 2021. A team can only move up the maximum of 10 spots in the order. That was part one. But part two was that you cannot win more than 2 times and take the first overall pick in a 5-year period. So had the Sharks won this lottery, they would be ineligible for the first overall pick next year. So that's just an interesting fun fact.
Thank you for explaining that to me, because I had heard something about that at the last draft, and I was confused because, yeah, I thought that if you had it within like the last 5 years, you couldn't have it again. But clearly I misunderstood how that worked. I wanted...
Yeah, go for it.
I wanted to say, when you said the Sharks didn't win it, but they didn't necessarily lose, I don't know, Dom, if you're not winning, you're losing, so sounds like a loser mentality to me.
Okay, well, Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last, and well, the Sharks know something about being last in the league, so it comes around to be picking early on, but we'll see. There's still some really good prospects at the top of the draft I can get into, even if it's not number 1 overall. However, of all the teams who could have jumped up, I'm just glad it wasn't a team that the Sharks are directly as a rival with. Yes, we can say boo to the Islanders, but on the flip side, maybe this will help them get the rebuild they actually need going, and they'll actually tear down and not be constantly repaying their old guys to miss the playoffs by 5 points every year. We'll see. It's just an opportunity. They're also going to have a new GM and everything, so it sounds like a reset for that franchise that, Long Island, everybody knows it's the second team in New York. Everybody thinks of the Rangers when New York. So if there's a team who's going to steal the first overall pick, one that the Sharks don't play frequently is fine by me. But how does the draft lottery actually work? And I need to give some credit here to ESPN, their team of researchers. I did some research and just reading different articles to help learn myself. For those who don't know, the lottery machine is randomized where there are 14 count them, numbered 1 through 14 ping pong balls that are all put in this. They call it a lottery machine. Basically, it's a compressed air tank that's just blowing air up and having all the balls floating around, and then eventually they will draw one or let one release, and so the one nearest to the top at that time will get suctioned up. But before they actually let a ball be picked, they start a 30-second timer so that it will be randomized and fair and they can't see the number beforehand. Why are there all these numbers, you say? Well, because how it works is that with those 14 ping pong balls put in the lottery machine, they will draw 4 of them in order. And so once a ball is drawn, it isn't replaced. And so with those 14 balls, and you have to have a 4-digit combination, it allows for 1,001 combinations. And each team is randomly assigned a set of those 4-number combinations. And so the worse a team's record, the more chances they're assigned. When I said the Sharks had 18.5% chance, that's because they got 185 combinations. And one combination is randomly chosen and thrown out. So when they randomly assign the combinations to the teams after the season is concluded, when you know where everyone stands, they take out one of them. That just results in a redraw if it is to come up. And then you have that even 1,000 to divide up and make the percentages clean.
Well, wait. Whose combination do they determine who gets thrown out? Like, that feels unfair.
Well, no, it's not given to a team. So there are 1,000 that are split up among the teams, so the numbers make sense.
Get rid of one. Okay, got it.
Yeah, they get rid of one, and if by 1 in 1,001 chance that combination comes up, they just say it's a redraw, nothing happens, and they would do 3 rounds of draws instead of 2.
I'm asking the question for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm making sure we get the answers we deserve, because I don't know how this works. Because I'm sure you all had the exact same questions as I did.
So, this is what's odd. So, like I said, they draw these ping pong balls and they draw them 4 numbers in an order. The numbers don't get replaced. So, if you draw a first number starting with a 7, you can't have a 7 again in that number order. So, the way these numbers are calculated, you might be able to say there's a lot more combinations if you do the math, and you're right, but they get filtered out, so it becomes impossible. Anyway, like I was saying, the Sharks actually themselves had 18.5% chance to win the first overall. Those were best odds. The Islanders had only a 3.5% chance to win the first overall pick. So compared to 185 combinations that the Sharks could win, the Islanders only had 35. And again, technically, the 25 picks for the 25 combinations for the Red Wings, the 20 combinations for the Blue Jackets, the 15 for the Utah Hockey Club, the Mammoth now, and the 5 for each of the Canucks and the Calgary Flames. All of those combinations, if one of those teams had won in that 12 through 16, they would have moved up that maximum of 10 spots to like 2 or lower overall. And after that first draw, the Sharks would have actually been locked into first overall pick. Then there's the second draw, and you do the same thing where the Islanders got slotted in and everybody else got shifted down. Because the Sharks finished last, they could move down no more than 2 places in the lottery. So they were guaranteed a top 3 pick. However, if a team 10 spots or less below them had won the second lottery, then that team actually would have jumped up ahead of the Sharks, and the Sharks would have been pushed all the way down to 3rd. So they didn't win the lottery with the first draw, but they didn't lose the second draw. Now, mind you, they didn't win the second draw either. The Sharks combination was not picked. It just so happened that it was the Utah Hockey Club who won the second draw, and so they jumped 10 spots to pick 4th overall in the upcoming draft. And since they did not bypass the Sharks, the Sharks ended up holding 2nd and the Blackhawks 3rd. However, this means for every team after the Blackhawks and the Sharks, who only moved down 1 spot in the order, they all got shifted down 2 spots. So Nashville went from originally being projected to pick 3rd all the way down to 5th, and so on down the line. So all those other teams, other than Calgary and Vancouver, who were already starting at 15 and 16, they ended up getting shifted back accordingly. So it's just an interesting process. I hope to understand it a bit more. They actually televised it for the first time ever, and they have like an actual legal company there who has all of the certified combinations. so that it is a third party verifying that the numbers are correct, and that there can be no collusion. But they televise it trying to make it more interesting. I have to say, I was watching it because I was in the lottery as a team, like hoping to get the win of that first overall with the best odds for the Sharks. But realistically, standing around watching all these other guys standing around awkwardly trying to make conversation as a bunch of ping pong balls are just bouncing around, and they draw the first three numbers and then cut to a 2.5-minute commercial, and we just see the balls bouncing around, and then they start the 30-second timer. I was just like, this dramatic that they're trying to show people, it honestly, in my opinion, was kind of boring. I think they were trying something to show it to the fans, and I don't know what their ratings were, but in previous years, they've done this behind the scenes and then just revealed the outcome. I think as a fan, if you are in it and potentially going to win, you'd be watching to see the outcome anyway. So I don't know if actually doing the live draw added any value to us as fans, as much as having us potentially be a witness to the process and say, hey, these in fact were the numbers we saw, so we can trust the process more. Cory, do you think that maybe is some value added by this? Because I'm torn.
I agree. I think they need a more fun format. Make it like The Price is Right, honestly. Make it a game show type thing. But, it's funny that you mentioned that they now have, that legal team in there, because genuinely so many people, I think, believe that Gary Bettman, he's an asshole. Don't get me wrong. Gary Bettman is like resistant to change. He keeps wanting to make a hockey team in Atlanta for no reason. Like, he doesn't want to grow the game sometimes. The Four Nations was a rare W by him. But I think there are people out there who genuinely, unironically believe that Gary Bettman is colluding and shaping the NHL and the draft how he wants to. There's a script writing and blah, 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 and he's rigging things. So in my mind, this was Gary Bettman's way of at least attempting to show, like, hey, this is how we legitimately do this. I am not, shoving my little fingies, my little gremlin fingies in the pie. It's random. It's legal. We're doing it right. We're not colluding. I don't have any sway over who gets the pick, blah, blah. So I think this was the reason why they showed it on the television.
And that honestly makes sense to me as well. It's not a bad guess. I think they've always actually had this legal team, and it's been the same legal team for the last 5 years. But having it in front of us, it makes it harder to disagree. We can say, oh, what if they got the combinations mixed up? We see the combinations in front of us, and they might be able to say, oh, what if they rigged it with the combinations? How did they get drawn? We saw how these ping pong balls are just bouncing around. It was a bit anticlimactic, or just the drama was lame. But I guess there is some ability that all of us can independently fact check and say, hey, this was legitimate. But I hope explaining this process, which I didn't understand either until I did the research, and I was watching it and I didn't even fully understand it as they were trying to explain it to me. You would think with nothing better to do, I could listen to that, but even I was confused and mildly bored. So I hope I was able to explain it without boring all of you who were listening. The part that I'm more excited about is, what are the Sharks' potential options now that we know they hold the second overall pick? And should they draft at number 2? Should they trade? Greer has said multiple times publicly that he is absolutely open to considering a trade. This is not like last year where he is a slam dunk, not really open to a deal. It needs to be a good deal. They're not just going to take any offer that comes their way, but they're actually going to consider offers. And this could be a gamesmanship thing. It keeps other teams guessing. It keeps the Sharks' options open by not committing to what they're going to pick, so teams can't necessarily anticipate what the Sharks are doing. And part of this, Greer has also said, is the Sharks aren't going to be drafting for need. In his perspective, as the team that finished last, they have needs everywhere. There's no one particular need that could be pointed to. So some analysts might say, oh, this is the best fit for the Sharks. Well, Greer's saying the top-end talent, the best talent we can get, is the best fit for the Sharks, and we'll figure out the rest as we go. We're still in that part of the rebuild where we just need to accumulate as much talent, then focus on the roster construction piece. And I do hope he's still going to do some roster construction and maybe go into free agency, and we'll see more of that. But I appreciate that what he's doing is playing the game, and it's like a poker face, not giving away what the Sharks' move is, and it keeps their options open. If Matthew Schaefer is currently the consensus number 1 overall, Cory, and he is a left-handed defenseman playing in the OHL, And if he's available, the Sharks at number 2, the Sharks should waste no time picking him up. Submit that pick after 30 seconds on the clock, please. Because I have said so many times, you might say I have perseverated, but I have gone over and over on this regrettably repetitive topic this season about how bad the Sharks defense has been. I mean, the goaltending is its own struggle, but the defense in front of them has really caused some problems because we've seen goaltenders have had success other places, a la Mackenzie Blackwood, a la Vitek Vanacek going over to Florida and in his first game getting a shutout. So, it proves that not all of the fault in the Sharks' goals allowed comes on the goaltenders, though I will still blame Georgiev for quite a few of them.
The nightmare is over now. You don't need to worry about it. The scary man is gone. He can't hurt you anymore.
Yeah, seriously, he can't hurt either of us anymore. We are all three. All of us recording. He lives in all of our nightmares, but no more. He is away for both of our sakes. But in all seriousness, the New York Islanders, they need things too. Yes, they just missed the playoffs with an uninspiring team. They need dynamic talent. They need young players across the board, in my opinion, because like I said, I think they're trending towards a rebuild, at least a retool. So I think they should be taking Matthew Schaefer, but there's a possibility that they don't. And it's not necessarily likely, but it has been talked about from multiple sources because top 5 rated prospect James Higgins actually grew up in Long Island and has been a lifelong Islanders fan. So the hometown kid, the hometown story coming to play for his favorite team, there's some potential sway there. It's a good storyline, and he's still an incredibly good player. He maybe underperformed to expectations this year, but he came into the season as the number 1 overall prospect. He was rated coming into this NCAA season expected to go number 1 overall. So I mean, this guy could be worthy of that pick. He's just actually let some guys down. He hasn't scored as many goals as people expected, while being the center on the best line in college sports at Boston College. So but he wasn't the one scoring the goals, and that gives people concern, and that's why he has slid to still be in the top 5, but not necessarily in the top 2 picks anymore. So with that in mind, if the Islanders do what I think they should and not be swayed by a storyline and take Matthew Schaefer, I would like to see the Sharks actually go for Michael Misa, who is the consensus number 2 overall draft pick, because it's another center, but centers can play everywhere, and the Sharks need help on faceoff. They need help down the middle. They need help everywhere, right, Cory? But why would I want a center? Well, because they've talked about Will Smith moving back to his natural position next year at center. However, the best of Will Smith came in later in the season when he was playing on the same line as Macklin Celebrini. And that combination, that dynamic duo, is really starting to move and groove at the end of the year, scoring nearly the same amount of points at the end of the season, like 29 points in 30 games and 30 and 30 for Macklin. So really on par with each other. I think if you get Michael Misa to be your second line center, then you can keep Will Smith on the same line as Macklin Celebrini. Neither of these guys, Misa or Will Smith, is going to be a third-line center. That's not what they're built for. But keeping Smith and Celebrini together when you've seen it work, the vision is there, it might be worth doing with a center, and plus having additional depth is always a good thing, especially at the center position. It is one of the most valued positions in hockey for a reason, Cory. Can you possibly help me explain the value of a center? Because I feel like I'm not doing the greatest job of that.
No, I think you did a fine job, because you said that centers are probably the most versatile positions in hockey. When you're a center, you can often play left wing or right wing, where if you're a wing specialist, you usually are sticking to those wings. Now, a center is really the setup man. They're the people who are, in theory, driving the entire line. So to have solid center depth like what the Avs did here at the trade deadline just gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of options, because sometimes you can move those extra centers out to the wing and they can perform just as well. So, I mean, if you have a lot of centers, there is nothing wrong with having those in excess.
Exactly. Thank you, Cory. And that's what I'm saying with Will Smith should be. And I'm not saying he's not capable of playing center, but when he played center at points during the season, it was shaky. And I know they want to try to get him back to that again to have options. But having Misa gives them an alternative option, and he is a consensus number 2 overall pick. I mean, unlike James Higgins, Misa has had no problem scoring. out in the OHL this season. He led the league with 134 points. The Sharks need points from any place they can get it. Despite the progress at points during the year, the Sharks actually finished with the worst number of goals scored, 32nd in the league, at only 208 this entire season, Corey. That's 2.5 goals per game. The Sharks need goals wherever they can get them. Get me the center who can score them. He scored like 60 goals and 70 plus assists this year. That is something the Sharks desperately need. But of course, there is a third option, and there are other centers, and I mentioned Hagens, but the third option of if you're not going to draft a defenseman because he's not available, there's no other defenseman who's really top 2 quality. And if you don't end up going for a center, the one left that has been talked about is right winger, I believe it's the right wing, would be Porter Martone. And he is a big winger, like a 200-pound winger, but he can score, he can shoot. And he would be another one of those top 6 guys that you would be expecting to insert here in the near future. He has that size and physicality, but also the scoring touch that Greer has been really searching for and accumulating a lot of picks recently, thinking guys like Igor Chernyshov, Musty and everything. That is also, though, the counterpoint is with those guys in the pipeline, does he think we don't need this big scoring winger? So I could see it going either way. The thing about Porter Martone is he is projected to go more in the 5 to 10 pick range. So if that is something that Greer wants to do, I would expect the Sharks would be trading back at that point. I don't think the Sharks honestly should make this move. I think, again, Michael Misa is probably the best pick if they're going to stay here, picking second overall. And trading back, I don't think there's a defenseman worth taking that risk to trade back for, giving up a true lottery slot, unless there is something you can get of huge value looking to next year. And I guess, again, this is the question of Greer has this prototypical type of player, and some people would say this big scoring winger is what the Sharks need because they have Smith and Celebrini for that center depth. I still, again, think that the center depth matters more, and once again, Greer said he is not drafting for need. The Sharks have needs everywhere, and need to stock up on talent in all phases. So, and the fact that he's stated, like I said, again, it could just be gamesmanship, but the willingness to trade means that he is not looking for any one particular player. But this in mind, my final theory, Corey, and I've told this to you, and this is a bold one and an extremely risky one, but if Greer was to make a trade with a team like Boston or Pittsburgh, a team that is expected to be in the top end of the lottery next season, he can trade their first pick this year for some package to get an unprotected first rounder next year. And that means the Sharks would give up the number 2 overall pick to be hopefully at the top end of the lottery next year to have a 20+% chance to go after Gavin McKenna. And if you haven't heard the name Gavin McKenna, well, he is the entire reason why I pontificated on this risk. Yeah, I knew you'd like that one. But Gavin McKenna, at 17 years old, he has been shredding the WHL. His numbers as a 16-year-old are the closest we've seen to Bedard's 100-point season at 97. This kid is an absolute franchise-altering player with his goal-scoring talent. And I've talked about what the Sharks need is that goal-scoring talent. He's going to be that flashier center, so not as big, but he can play the full 200-foot game, and he can score a lot of goals. So if the Sharks are going to make a trade out of the first round entirely and just bank on the Stars pick later in the first round that they have, they better be trading with the Boston Bruins for the unprotected first round pick next year when Boston finishes last, so that the Sharks can have like a combined 30% chance at going after Gavin McKenna. Because that is the only reason the Sharks should trade out of the first round, in my opinion, because, again, super risky. The number 2 overall pick, Michael Misa, guaranteed thing, sure, NHL ready prospect who would be starting within a year, if not less. But Gavin McKenna, this is Celebrini, Bedard, McDavid level talent, just like goal scoring ability here and just stick handling. So maybe it's worth taking that chance. Corey, again, it would be a absolute rock solid ballsy move to go for it, because if it goes bad, Greer will probably get fired. So it would be a really, really big punt if it goes wrong. But if it goes right, who knows where the Sharks are on the rebuild? Did it accelerate the rebuild by a year or more?
Well, I guess my question to you, answer your question with a question. My question is this. You've talked about a lot of what Mike Greer and the Sharks should do and a little bit of a conspiracy theory here, especially related to Gavin McKenna. But as a fan, Dom, because we're a fan cast, what do you want the Sharks to do? If you had to, out of all the things you have just laid out to me, which all of them I think are solid options, and I think all of them carry inherent risk. There is always a chance that someone doesn't translate to the NHL. They end up being a bust, or they take a few years to develop. I think Jack Hughes is a great example. He was not great in his first year and a half, and then all of a sudden he exploded into the superstar we know him now. But it took a while. But there's inherent risk with every decision that the Sharks could take that you've just laid out. So as a fan, what do you want them to do, Dom?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it, and I know I said it to you a little while ago about the Gavin McKenna move. It's too much risk knowing that the Sharks hold number 2. If they had fallen all the way to 3, or if the lottery was set up that they maybe fell a bit further, it would be absolutely worth it to try to snag a pick next year, especially if in a deal with the Penguins they could get their 3rd rounder back. Quick side tangent, I just need to say 3rd round picks matter a lot more because of the opportunity to what is it? Make offers to restricted free agents. What's that called again?
Oh, offer sheeting?
Offer sheet. Yeah. Offer sheeting, most offer sheets, you need your own 3rd round pick.
I thought it was a first round pick that you had to give for an offer sheet.
It depends. They set up the offer sheet, so it's depending on the salary range you give a guy.
Oh.
And in most combinations, you need your 3rd rounder. The only combinations you don't, if it's like less than 1.5 mil a season, or if it's greater than 11 mil a season, when you have to give up 4 first rounders. Every other combination.
God! You have to give up 4?
Huh?
Holy
4 first rounders.
Shit.
Plus an 11 million per year or more contract. So fucking insane.
God. I mean, that's an unlikely thing to ever offer sheet somebody. I mean, the Blues proved that offer sheets work. I mean, it worked with Holloway and Broberg, 100%. But obviously, they were not nearly doing that amount of money. 4 first round picks? Oh my God.
Yeah, and so all other offer sheets, you need it to have your own 3rd round pick, which the Penguins currently hold. So if the Sharks were to make a deal into next year, they would probably be trying to get their 3rd round pick and make it would be a blockbuster, multiple picks going both ways type of deal. So don't know if that's worth it, but it opens up doors. So if they're going to make a trade, it might be worth it to do it with Pittsburgh rather than Boston. But no, in all seriousness, I think they should take Michael Misa. The only reason they shouldn't is if they can trade that 1st overall pick for a proven top pairing right-handed defenseman who a team is looking to jump up into the top of the round, and they're willing to send a player, an NHL-ready player. Because then that is getting a sure thing. You said about the inherent risk of things that no matter what they do, there's inherent risk. And I guess getting an NHL proven player from a different system, that has a risk too. But they have actually played at the NHL level, proven themselves, and most importantly, fill the Sharks' biggest need at that defensive spot. So I say draft Michael Misa unless some amazing deal, like I said, for a right-handed D-man comes up.
I mean,
that would.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh.
No, go for it.
Well, I don't know if he's right-handed, but in theory, the Islanders could pick 1st and 2nd if you traded Noah Dobson for that 1st round pick. You know what I mean? And I mean, that's a solid defenseman right there. That's somebody who's proven. So the Islanders really wanted that rebuild and get the 1st and 2nd overall pick.
And that's not a bad idea. I don't know where their salary cap's at if they can afford that. But at the same time, Dobson's going to be due for a raise because he's going to be a restricted free agent, I believe, here either this offseason or the next one. So, and he's going to be due for a pretty hefty raise. I mean, north of 9 million, I'm guessing. So, or at least 8 million. But I've heard numbers that are in the double digits. I'm not sure if he's going to get that. So I'm saying 9 million. But yeah, so that's a great idea. That would be one I'd be happy to go for. We talked about Noah Dobson being a great fit for the Sharks, but the Islanders weren't really interested in prospects necessarily. So a prospect swap wasn't going to kind of happen there. But the 2nd overall pick, that's a different story. So, I wouldn't mind that deal. I'm sure there would be multiple pieces involved. It wouldn't just be that straight up number 2 overall for Dobson because the NHL is rarely that simple. But something to consider. But alas, I've spent a lot of time talking about this. So to, again, cement my answer to your question, I think the Sharks should draft Michael Misa. And if they're going to move a pick, they should be moving the pick that they got from the Stars, or should be doing something with their second rounders and that pick from the Stars in a package to move further up into the first round and be able to get multiple top 10 quality talents like they had last year with getting Sam Dickinson with the number 10 overall.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of options available, and I'm also, from an outsider perspective, eager to see what Greer does. But thank you, Dom, for explaining that to me, because I genuinely had zero idea how the draft works. And it's a shame that not as many people listen to this podcast, because I'm sure there's lots of hockey fans who would love to know how the draft lottery works. I certainly did, and now I know. So if you're listening to this podcast, which you're hearing me say that, of course you are, you need to tell people who also want to know how the draft works to come and listen to this podcast. So yeah, that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. I mean, I feel like we're learning things from each other here all the time.
Always.
I mean, especially a lot of your fun facts. None of those things I've known pretty much all season. But that's what we set out to do. We wanted to learn and grow our own knowledge and love of the game, but also educate. And so I hope that was beneficial to those of you who listen, and that maybe in the future more will take the opportunity and come listen to this episode someday.
Yes, absolutely. Well, before I kick it off into our next topic here, I just want to make sure you're all finished up, ready to move on, or do you have anything else that you would like to hit on here?
No, I appreciate it, man. But I think this is that was overall some of the options that the Sharks should do. And I, like I said, just wanted to go through that lottery. So thanks for dedicating the time to be able to start off tonight with that.
Yes, and thank you everybody for lending your ears for the return of In the Tank. I missed it, and I'm glad we got it back. Well, like I said, one of the other 3 hockey things that are going on right now is the World Championship. So I just have a couple brief notes. I've admittedly done a poor job of watching it. Been watching the playoffs, obviously, and I will tell you that tournament moves fast. So a lot of countries playing a lot of games. Canada has already played 4 games, as has the US. So it is moving and grooving. I think they play every 2 days, and I am not ready. But
some back-to-backs too, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interject, but all 16 teams have played 4 games at this point. And the tournament only started, I want to say, on the 9th.
Yeah.
So in less than a week.
Even later. But yeah. Either way.
Yeah, in less than a week. Yeah, they've all played 4 games, which is pretty crazy.
It's a lot of hockey. Well, to no one's surprise, Nathan MacKinnon on the international stage is once again dominating, which makes it all the more exciting for, I believe, his first Olympics upcoming. Well, he's tied for second in tournament scoring with 4 goals and 4 assists for 8 points, behind the legendary Czech himself, David Pastrnak, who is at 9. Mac has found actually good chemistry with Bo Horvat, it seems, of all players. Canada is currently 4-0 in all of their games played, and is frankly routing and dominating every opponent they come across. MacKinnon is currently wearing number 9 at this tournament, to which I wondered why. Who could possibly be more deserving of that number here? Marc-Andre Fleury is the answer to that, and that's definitely it's Marc-Andre Fleury, who has a respectable .939 save percentage, while Jacob Markstrom continues his domination he showed in the playoffs with a .970 save percentage. Can't wait until Canada and the Swedes clash. Also, classic Swiss Sven Andrighetto is playing in this tournament. And for those who don't know that name, you haven't been an Avalanche fan long enough. He wore number 10 for the Avalanche. For some reason, when I started really watching the Avs, his name always stuck out to me. Definitely was not a fucking world shaker, but, Sven Andrighetto. He's playing for the Swedes. Or no, the Swiss. Sorry, the Swiss. Yeah.
Yeah, and excited to see the Swiss doing well. I'm honestly not surprised. I've always been the one who's not shy to mention the Swiss and hype them up. They don't always get a lot of credit, but the Swedes, like you're saying, the Swedes and the Canadians, on one. And did you see the Finns won 9-1
I did
yesterday
not.
or today over Slovenia?
Oy.
Oh my God. Yeah, but guys, the US fourth in their pool right now behind each of the Germans, Swiss, and the Czechs. The Czechs are the defending champions, lest we forget. So anybody's in this tournament, Norway, who has yet to win a game, pushed the US to overtime to get their first point. So all of these teams deserve to be here and can win on any given night, even if we typically seem to be focusing on the ones at the top of the table.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And I think that's what makes world hockey so exciting. And, a lot of these teams aren't even at their full powers, like what we'll see in the Olympics. For example, Germany definitely is still missing a top player, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I mean, it's crazy that Canada really it's kind of unfair because they have two of the best players in the world right now. In my opinion, the best player in the world. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable that Canada was able to get away with having Nathan MacKinnon and Sidney Crosby play on the same team. Again, all while Nathan MacKinnon motivates future Avalanche centerman Sidney Crosby over this summer. So, yeah, it's exciting stuff, and we'll definitely be keeping more of an eye on it after pool play has concluded. Once that elimination phase really starts to kick off, and we'll see who's able to win. For those wondering about Marty Netchis, he was not, as far as I could see, top 30 in scoring, so perhaps a bit of a quieter tournament, but we'll check back in later, see how things are going as the weeks go by. Just one of the things that I want to keep updating on because there's Avalanche players in this tournament, and future Avalanche players in this tournament. So, of course, we want to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the Sharks side, Macklin Celebrini has a goal and assist. Has been having a great time playing with Crosby. So you're not the only one who wants to see Crosby make a jump. I think the Avalanche make a lot more sense. But hey, maybe he wants to come finish his career playing on a line with Macklin. I would love to see that personally. But Will Smith actually doing better for the as a representative for the Sharks as well, with 4 points, all on assists. So I guess the depth of the Canadian team, Macklin Celebrini is not getting as much time, or he doesn't stand out as much from the crowd compared to maybe how Will Smith has been doing. But both have been doing a respectable job in these games, and so it's just great to see overall. I love these type of tournaments. We see so many players that we don't see necessarily at the NHL level. Because when we think about the countries here, we don't know like too many Latvian players, but they're doing well. The Slovakians, the Austrians. I mean, how about the Kazakhstans, the Kazakhs? I guess. So there's a lot of teams that. The Zacks. There's a lot of teams that you wouldn't expect, and yeah, you mentioned it. Germany is understaffed right now. The fact that they are third in the pool with 3 wins, it doesn't surprise me, but I'm I guess surprised that they're doing it without the Leon, because I would not expect them to be ahead of the US. At least I would expect them to be moving on from pool play, but not as the 3 and US as the 4. That definitely is a bit of a shock right now based on how things are. Granted, 4 games, round robin would be playing 7 games, so there's plenty of time for that to change. All of you who are fans of the US like myself.
Philip Grubauer actually is one of the best save percentage in the tournament. I think he was 3 or 4 overall, so he's actually having a really good tournament. But his fellow Kraken goaltender, Joey Decord, is actually the leading goaltender for the U.S., but he has, fun fact, dual citizenship, everyone. So Joey Decord could play for either Canada or the U.S., so he is chosen, or was chosen, to represent the U.S. at this tournament. So just interesting stuff.
That's an important thing to highlight, because if we think back to the 4 nations, and if everybody remembers how closely matched the Canadians and the U.S. were, yeah, a lot of their top talent is still in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that Canada can have Crosby and can have MacKinnon and some of these players, it is insane, because the U.S., they don't have either Ottinger or at least yet, they don't have either Ottinger or Hellebuck. At least one of them will be available here soon. Well, who knows? He did great in the 4 nations, so you never know. But I guess, Grubauer, I think maybe is this another Binnington who revives his career playing great on the international stage and being able to earn himself a shot with another team or get back into a starting role next year, build some momentum? Do you think that's a possibility?
A backup at best. I really, I'm glad he's having a great tournament. And I don't wish ill upon Philip Grubauer either. He betrayed me in every possible way when he led the Kraken to an upset over the Avs. So never forgive him for that one. But I don't wish ill upon him. But I think those NHL numbers were so unbelievably abysmal that, if a competing team needs a backup with, a lot of regular season and playoff experience, he's good for that. But otherwise, I frankly would not trust him in a starting role with his frankly consistent decline ever since he's left the Avalanche.
And that's fair because, like I said, it's great to see players we don't always see and to see these countries playing. But that also means they're pulling on talent that isn't NHL caliber necessarily. So one could argue, well, these tournaments are very exciting and we can see high quality play with the number of teams here. With 16, some of the quality and with how many players are still in the NHL for the playoffs right now, maybe these are easier games to win, dare I say. I mean, compared to the playoffs, obviously, but when you think of all that top NHL talent that's currently in the playoffs that is not at the World Championships, at least right now, maybe that is giving him a little boost as well.
And I have to say, it's kind of insane, and I'm not saying that these other guys are not talented, but I know we had talked about it before, and it just really demonstrates just how far and above the talent in the NHL is compared to non-NHL talent. It's frankly kind of ridiculous. And I think Canada demonstrates that pretty well since, players of Canadian descent dominate the NHL still to this day, although that's beginning to turn around in recent years. But obviously, with a lot of teams eliminated, you still had a lot of really quality Canadian players to pick from for the NHL, for this national team. So it isn't necessarily surprising to see Canada just absolutely clapping the cheeks of their opponent right now, and just how much better NHLers are, just how much better you have to be to play in the NHL.
Yeah, and I mean, you hear about the KHL, which is often considered the second best league in the world, or at least affectionately referred to that way by the players in it. The players who in the NHL recognize the capability of the KHL, but similarly, guys from the KHL, when they make the transition, always say just how much faster the NHL level is. And even if you're, yeah, it's a totally different rink size and everything. So it really is a different style of play entirely. It's not an entirely different game, but it's pretty close to it. So that has an impact as well. One would argue that perhaps the AHL versus the KHL could be a matchup between those teams would be telling to see which league is a better second to the NHL.
That would be fun. Why don't we do that? We should do that. The AHL versus the KHL. America versus Russia Part 2. Oh, yeah. That'd be cool.
AHL All-Stars versus KHL All-Stars.
That'd be fucking sick. What? I'd watch
Hey, Gary
that.
Bettman, if you're listening, here's your next amazing idea.
Whoever the commissioners are for the AHL and the KHL, they need to make that happen. That'd be really fun.
He's representing the NHL. He could probably have some sway over the AHL guys at least.
Yeah, that would be fun. But all right. I'm ready to move into talking about these playoffs, Dom.
Yeah, let's do it. Take us away, Captain.
Round 2 continued. I swear, I should be a wrestling announcer, although that has its own can of worms. Yeah.
Let's hear your Bruce Buffer. It's time.
I'm not even gonna try right now. I'm not even gonna try. I can't. Sorry, everyone. I can't. And an interesting tidbit I came across, and Dom and I were actually talking about this before the episode even started, was every division and conference leader is at risk of or already sent home. Is at risk of being or already is sent home. Last night, Vegas, who led the Pacific Division, was sent packing. The Jets, who led the Central and entire Western Conference, are on the verge of elimination currently. I also have this game on in the background. Stars and Jets 0-0 after 1. The Toronto Maple Leafs, who led the Atlantic, are now at risk of getting sent home. And the Washington Capitals, who led the Metropolitan and the entire Eastern Conference, were at risk of getting body slammed by Carolina. But no, they were body slammed by Carolina. They have also been sent home. Kind of a crazy situation, Dom. One storyline that I'm really depressed didn't happen because the Blues just couldn't hold on for another 4 seconds was that every Vezina-nominated goaltender was nearly sent home in the first round. Hellebuck, Kemper, and Vasilevsky. Kemper and Vasilevsky were both sent home in the first round. Hellebuck almost was and is probably going home tonight.
Yeah, and honestly, I have to say, I mean, I agree. I think Hellebuck is either going home tonight or he's going home in a couple nights' time because I don't think Winnipeg can win on the road. They've been really, really abysmal on the road.
Literally no road wins this entire playoffs.
Yeah.
None.
So whether they win tonight or not, he's going home here soon, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The one that's the biggest surprise to me was how handily the Oilers were able to deal with Vegas, who is a team with playoff pedigree, who's built to go deep every year, and I love it. I mean, I know you will always shit on Edmonton, and I'm going to tee you up here to have all the hate for McDingle in the world, but I mean, I have all the hate for Vegas in the world, so I don't mind Edmonton doing that. The Kings get fucked over, the Knights get fucked over. Thank you, Edmonton. You're doing the Sharks a public service. But I'm honestly, that's the one that I'm surprised got knocked out. If any of the 1 seeds I thought would make a deep run, it would have been Vegas. I mean, I picked against Toronto multiple times. I picked against Washington multiple times. I doubled down on Carolina, so saw that one coming. And Winnipeg, I always said it was either going to be Dallas or Colorado that wins the West. So, of course, Winnipeg had to go falling at some point. But Vegas is the one that I really thought should have been having a legitimate shot if it was either Vegas or LA. So clearly I was wrong about the Pacific, guys. I don't even know my own division.
Well, clearly we keep underestimating the Oilers because I didn't think they had a fuck's chance in hell against any of the teams they played last year. I'll tell you what, though.
What did Stuart Skinner do? Like, how did this man be the defining factor?
Shutouts. You know what, Stuart? I'm going to give you credit because nobody is. Back-to-back shutouts. I fucking hate it. What the fuck? It's just absurd. I'm so mad because I want the Avs to win because I want a crack at these Edmonton Oilers in the playoffs. And we haven't gotten it. We got Mike Smith. We kicked his ass. Fuck you, Mike. We got the Mike Smith experience. I want Stuart Skinner. I want to play him. But we're just not getting the chance to, and I want to so bad. And you know what, Oilers fans? I hate you. I hate your organization. I hate your team. Maybe I'm just jealous. Maybe I'm jealous that you're going to the fucking Western Conference Final 2 years in a row. But at the end of the day, I want to play you. I want to play you again. I do. I really do. So, yeah. I want to backpedal for a second here because I had a couple more little tidbits here. Opposing fans have been chanting the opposing goalie's name a lot, especially when the game is tied or scoreless, and it makes no sense. I've been hearing this from many different arenas, and it's just weird. I mean, I understand taunting a goalie when you've been laying him out all night, but before a goal has ever even been scored, before you've taken a lead, and I mean, goalie can flip a switch at any given night, as we've seen. Stuart Skinner being the best example. 944 save percentage now with 2 back-to-back shutouts. Another quick tidbit. 9 times in these playoffs has a team scored in the first 2 minutes, and those teams are currently 6-3. So, just kind of interesting fact. But
interesting.
Yeah, we will keep talking about Edmonton and Vegas because they're the first ones I had listed here. Had we recorded this yesterday, we would have likely watched this series end live on the broadcast, but we're talking about it today, and you're hearing about it on Friday. So this series is now long over. The Edmonton Oilers are moving on to the Western Conference Final for the second year in a row off of a back-to-back Stuart Skinner shutout after he lost his starting job. I will say, though, this final game was quite the duel in both goaltending and chance trading. I thought all things considered, with the Golden Knights finally closing the shot gap and generating actual offense, that they could carry that into OT. But Edmonton is just an overtime juggernaut. I was hoping it'd go on much longer than it did, but I had my doubts based on how much the teams were trading those scoring chances. It wasn't as deadlocked as the 0-0 score made it appear, just based on how much open ice there was to skate in.
Yeah, and I think what was interesting is you had a battle between the best third period team in the league this year and the best overtime team in the league. And in Edmonton was the overtime team, as you just said. They shut down Vegas. I mean, entirely. Like, Vegas was shut out in 2 consecutive games, but in this series, they really took away that third period advantage that Vegas has always leaned on. We're finishing games stronger than their opponents, and it seemed to unsettle them. And going to OT, definitely, you could just feel that the Oilers were going to be better. I mean, there have been a lot of games since we last recorded. The Knights were able to win in the literal last second of regulation, 0.4 seconds to get their one win of this series. But beyond that, the Oilers were able to win in OT in spite of having the Knights having the advantage of or no, it wasn't that. Do you remember this game? It was game 2, I want to say, Cory, when Edmonton had a 5-minute major power play in overtime and Vegas killed it off.
Yes.
And you just have this sense that Vegas can't lose now. It's game 2. They're at home. They just killed off a 5-minute major power play. How are they going to lose? To Leon Draisaitl sitting in his fucking office.
Nah, it was the Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl wombo combo 2-on-1.
Yeah,
that was that one.
Again, he was still close to the red line, wasn't he?
Either fucking way. You can't let those guys do that shit.
Yeah, I know you're right, because McDavid's the one who was able to get the open ice and just speed away because he's just the Flash out there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you guys didn't see it, go find it. It was from game 3. This happened back on Saturday the 10th. Please just go watch and see how close this goal went in right at the end of regulation. This is why you just never stop playing the game until the very last second till you hear that horn go. Because they stole victory in Edmonton and I think left that entire building shocked.
Oh my God, if I was an Edmonton fan who probably could have swept this series, I'd be fucking pissed, bro. I'd be like, they won every game except for the one that I paid to go to, and they lost it in the last 0.4 seconds. This is bullshit. I hate it. I'd be mad as hell. I think
the Oilers are mad as hell too with those last 2 games.
Well, to me, I'm shocked that I'm saying this. Oh yeah. Fuck you, Rico. Anyway, enjoy your L, Rico. Yeah, I know my team lost too, but so did yours. Does Rico? You said Rico listens to these, right?
I haven't talked to him in a minute. At least he used to. He's actually out in Florida now.
All right.
He's not in Vegas, but he still roots for Vegas, so he has some team loyalty, even if it's to the worst of them.
I have been asked if saying that, if he's okay with it or if it hurts his feelings. So I guess we need to get in contact with Rico. We got to make sure that he is not deeply offended by our constant jeers at his team support.
No, I'm sure he doesn't mind. He's this can be my avenue, but I can obviously check in with the boy. But
yeah,
I think he'll be okay. He knows that I know. I mean, he knows that I was at a Vegas playoff game with him, and that was like the one night of my entire life I put my Vegas hate aside and rooted for the home team.
Come on now,
when they played the Canadians,
just
because it was there.
You got to be like a Sith Lord, bro. Let the hate flow through you. Fester. Don't.
Now, see, it worked. It worked because I got to watch the home team win a game, which was an awesome experience. So that's why undefeated at playoff games when I'm there for the home team.
We needed to get you. We needed to get you there to Dallas, but I guess if it's undefeated for the home team, it wouldn't matter. Dallas.
Well, I mean, I guess it's been. I've only seen the home team, right?
True.
I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm just a good omen in the playoff building.
I guess so.
Maybe I need to go to more games.
Well,
but it worked out because the Canadians reverse swept the Knights, so it was perfect case scenario for me. Anyway, back to you. I'm tangenting away.
No, you're good. Well, to me, Vegas kind of got punked. Yeah, I mean, but you can't score if you're never generating any offense, and Edmonton was just greatly out shooting them in nearly every game. I believe that the Knights have better defense, but when you're constantly having to weather the storm and you're not converting on your already limited chances, that just isn't a recipe for success. Not to mention, Stuart Skinner suddenly decides to whip his cock out and rub his balls in your face. I'm watching Edmonton due to Vegas. What I noticed they did to Colorado in the regular seasons, which was a game that I attended, they were just cycling the Knights to death. And they have the weapons to go up top and down low, just to go boom, boom, shot over and over again. Not to mention Vegas, who was the least penalized team in the regular season, took 15 penalties, resulting in 72 penalty minutes against the Oilers, is not something I would recommend. Not to mention their own power play couldn't convert. Boy, do I understand how that feels. To take some flack from Vegas, they did lose numerous players, including defenders and their captain throughout the series. This was the worst series by far because I despise both teams involved, and there was no happy outcome. But I would have appreciated it if Vegas made my bracket at least a little bit correct. And I mean the series as a whole, especially I think it was game 4, just unhinged fights, runs at the goalie, brutal cross checks, pure fury, and fuck ton of penalties. So, I am both happy and sad that series is over, because the more series end, the less hockey there is. So we don't want that, but that's just the nature of the beast. It's what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, we're looking at, it's very possible that we won't see a single series go the full 7 games.
We very much may not.
And that's surprising, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am quite surprised. I actually think you, good sir, are hoping for Winnipeg to pull some rabbit out of a hat just to send Dallas home.
I fucking am, dude. If the Western Conference Final is Edmonton versus Dallas again, that'd be 2 years in a row. That's ass, bro. That is fucking ass to me. Because I'm allowed to have an opinion. I don't like certain hockey teams. I don't. And it's funny because I saw the thing. It's like you're allowed to be a fan of more than one team, which is perfectly fine. If you are that way, that is fine. I am not. I am a fan of one team and one team only. I enjoy other teams, and I'll root for them when I no longer have a stake in the matter. But I'm a fan of the Avalanche. I do not want 2 of our biggest rivals to go out and play each other in the Western Conference Final, which means one of them could go to the Stanley Cup Final. Hell, we could have Edmonton versus Florida Part 2. That's lame.
And on the flip side, what if my pick for like 5 years running finally happens with Canes against Stars the 1 year I don't pick it in my bracket? Not a completely different perspective from your fan perspective, because obviously Knights versus Oilers was a pretty worst case scenario. Oilers versus Kings was a pretty worst case scenario for me. So my hated teams have already been knocked by the Oilers. So now Oilers versus Stars, I'm just like,
I don't even want to root for anybody. I don't even want to root for anyone. Maybe not for you, for me. I'm saying it's for me. I'm being selfish. I'm talking about me, Dom. Your generational beef has been quashed. The Knights, your most hated enemy, are gone. My most hated enemy, I'm watching fucking outplay the Jets in every fucking game.
Yeah, I get it. And that's, I guess what I'm saying is I empathize, because my hated enemies in the Kings and the Knights have each gotten knocked out. So maybe the Stars will be next on the Oilers in March.
Oh God. Okay, we're gonna switch it over to the East real quick here. To the other team that's been eliminated, with the Hurricanes and the Capitals. First of all, the Hurricanes home building was absolutely rocking. That crowd was very loud. So Dom, and I think everybody who's been listening to this knows that I'm often very critical of crowd noise and crowd support. So Carolina Hurricanes fans, you have my vote of confidence. You guys were fucking awesome for your team. And I mean, even when the Caps started to make a comeback in some of those home games, you never wavered. So that crowd was loud and awesome over the TV. And I just wanted to give them some credit for that. Following up on that statement, though, Dom, they released a list of the top goaltenders in the playoffs right now. And you have guys who are kind of all over the place. A lot of them have actually been eliminated, funnily enough. But you have some guys who are higher on like save percentage, lower on goals against. But there is actually one goaltender who holds the #1 spot in both categories, goals against and save percentage. Do you know who that goaltender is?
Well, based on the series we're talking about and how well he played, just locking down, only allowing 7 goals in 5 games in this entire series, I do have to guess Freddie Anderson for the Carolina Hurricanes.
It most certainly is Freddie Anderson, who is playing out of his fucking mind. I really have to give a lot of credit to Freddie Anderson, who has stepped in for his team this year, and at times has been shaky at best. Yeah, here he is. Not counting goalies who kind of stepped in, like Scott Wedgwood or Akira Schmidt, who didn't let one in. Yeah, Freddie Anderson is currently sitting at a 1.36 GAA and a .937 save percentage. That's insane, because the Devils and the Capitals are high offense powerhouse teams. So I genuinely hope, for their sake, that this year is different. That going to the Eastern Conference Final is not their downfall. I really do. I hope it's them versus Toronto, and I hope one of them goes on to the Stanley Cup. I do. And I hope the Hurricanes can do it. I have changed my tune about the Hurricanes this year. And for some comparison there, Jake Ottinger is at a 2.55 GAA with a 0.917 save percentage, which, is still respectable, but 1.36 across 9 games. Come on, man. You're kidding me. Insane. Even in the losses, he's not letting in any goals. It's insane.
Yeah, he has been absolutely locked down, and he is playing in a system that helps goalies. Carolina is, I've heard it called the easiest scout, because you know what they're going to do, and it's all about defense. But there is no counter to it. I mean, you just need magic to get by them, if anything, because they're going to do what they do, and the pressure does not seem to phase them, at least not in these first 2 rounds of the playoffs. And we'll see what they do in the Eastern Conference Final, because I like you, really hope that they can actually break it through and get to the cup. I mean, I really want to see Bernsey get it. He's 40, so I mean, this could very well be the last shot. I've been saying that for the last few years. Any year could be that last shot he has. So, Go Carolina. And you know what? Yeah, let's see Toronto make it there. It would be fun to see those. There's a no-lose scenario there.
Well, it's interesting that you say it's all about defense, which is true. They have an insanely strong defensive system, best defensive defenseman in Jacob Slavin. But they outshot Washington in, I think, every game.
Bar one, I think.
Yeah, maybe bar one, but they very much rely on a system where they just take the shot, and it works. It works so stupidly well for them. They're not flashy, and along with Anderson, the entire team has been quietly incredible, and I don't really see anybody talking about it. I mean, this team has just been dominant, and there is just no discussion at length, and I feel like it deserves to be discussed. So that's why I'm doing it now, especially due to the fact that they also traded Mikko Rantanen, and they weren't able to flip the picks that they got for other assets. And yet, Logan Stankoven, in addition to the guys that they already had, are just winning, and they're not letting their opponents do jack shit. I've honestly enjoyed this series from an outsider perspective, and I have admittedly changed my tune on Carolina a bit. I am still mad that they traded fucking Rantanen to Dallas, but I do hope that they continue this dominance, as it hasn't always translated in the conference finals. And as I already mentioned, I don't want Florida versus Edmonton Part 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, I mean, we would love to not see that, but this is what Carolina does. Maybe if nobody's talking about it because
it's just expected.
It's just expected that they'll make this run. It's kind of like, oh, Toronto's going to make it to the playoffs and collapse. Well, that didn't happen this year. They didn't get knocked out in the first round. Maybe this is the year Carolina breaks through.
Yeah. Well, you recall all the way back when we made our original conference final predictions, at least on the Eastern side, I still have a very realistic chance of getting that right. I said Carolina and Florida, and that is genuinely looking like what it's shaping out to be again. So even though I changed my tune as the playoffs got closer, I'm impressed that I at least was able to get that right. So go me.
Go you, Captain.
Well, okay. Well,
did I lose you there?
No, my brain just shut off for 2 seconds. I'm fine. Speaking of Florida, let's talk about Toronto versus Florida. First, the Panthers are 25-0 when leading after any period in the playoffs under Paul Maurice. I guess makes that 26-0. That's a stat you need to know. And I greatly underestimated, this Florida team, foolishly, again, but all fairness, the Leafs looked like the stronger team in the first 2 games. They had swagger, control, and remained calm under pressure. Even when Florida had that pushback, sorry, I just lost my breath because the Jets finally scored a fucking goal.
Yeah, just saw.
Oh my God. Yeah, amazing when you just keep shooting pucks at Ottinger. Eventually they go in.
Oh, it's a goober goal! It's a goober goal! If Harley wasn't standing there, that goes wide!
Like a goober goal. Wait, hold on. We gotta see this. We gotta watch the replay.
It's a 4-on-4 goober goal!
We might have a potential goober goal! Okay, hold on. Let's see this replay. That is indeed a goober goal! That's insane. That's not even the first time that's happened to Dallas. Oh, he saw the opportunity. He was like, this dumb motherfucker's standing backdoor. If my player isn't standing backdoor, I might as well use him to do it. And I have to say, Ottinger's played so well that those are really the only goals that get past him. So, well done, Winnipeg. At least keep this series going a little longer so me and Dom have some more hockey to keep talking about. Anyway, back to this. Game 3, though, was a back-and-forth battle. Toronto started out. Florida pushed back like they have every game, except this time they got a toe T. They win the game. And now Florida has looked like the better team for the last 2 games, and it is not even close. And they almost shut out Toronto back-to-back, and at this point, they are skating circles around them and doing literally whatever they want. The Leafs look like they are trying not to get scored on rather than trying to score themselves. Florida is genuinely not allowing them to generate any offense. And in yesterday's game, Toronto just looked like they stopped trying with 5 minutes to go. I understand it's 6-0, but at least put in some effort to not get shut out twice. Hell, the only guy who scored for them was, a fourth line grinder. This was his first playoff game of the series. So, I mean, come on. And I mean, I can't even blame this on the missing Anthony Stolars. Toronto just suddenly looks like every positive thing they've been doing up to this point is just falling apart. They also haven't proven to me at any point or to anybody else that they can step up, not just as individuals, but as a team in the face of adversity like this. I would love for them to win, but I have my doubts that they can do it. Yes, they face more media scrutiny being in the biggest hockey market, and everybody has bad games, but I agree that something like this right now is just unacceptable. This is the fucking playoffs. Florida knows what it takes to win. I don't agree or enjoy their tactics of injuring every player on the opposing team, but they have an insane ability to get under the skin of their opponents and just live in their heads rent-free. And Toronto fans really need to stop chanting, "We want Florida." Go on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's absolutely valid too. You should not be chanting that. That just like with the goaltenders, you're just going to aggravate them. But after some shaky play, Bobrovsky finally locked it down, and he has been absolutely stellar these last couple of games, right up there with Freddie Anderson, like in the quality. But in Game 5 here in Toronto, Florida finally broke through, and you're talking about that mental game. First, Brad Marchment continues to just live in the nightmares of all Toronto fans everywhere with the OT winner. And while we were at your graduation, your mom and I watching it happen as Cory was finally officially graduating. Everyone congratulate the man. He has completed. And yes, we were watching the game up in the stands before you were actually walking across the stage. But game 5 here, what I was going to say, this is the game where they got so in Toronto's head. I mean, what is it? At the 13-19 minute in the third period, there were something like 7 or 8 penalties that happened. The total penalty minutes in this game was, it says 70, but it has to be more with the number of misconducts I see here, which is insane.
I don't mean to interject, but here's the comparison. In that game alone, there's 70 penalty minutes. In the series for the Knights and the Oilers, each team had 72 and 73 minutes respectively across the whole series. This was one game. That's insane.
And in game 5, you're correct. Game 4 and game 3, really, Stolarz not being there wasn't as evident. In game 5, it was. And I think coming into this series, I would have said after round 1 that Stolarz was probably the number 1 goaltender in this series. Bobrovsky was playing like the second best goaltender, and then Woll would be third. Well, in game 5, we really saw that difference. Woll giving up 5 goals on 25 shots compared to Bobrovsky 1 on 32. This game, I have to say, because through 2 periods when there wasn't all the extra penalties and all the fluff, it was still 4-0 Florida. So I have to say, game 5 at home in Toronto, that is the one time that I think it might be okay to fault Woll a little bit and say, what if with Stolarz?
I mean,
I'm sure we will hear that from the Toronto media.
Yes. And I mean, certainly so. I mean, no matter what, you're the guy in net if things are going down 6-0. But I mean, to me, a lot of it came down to Toronto's play, just allowing those opportunities. I mean, on the third goal, which Steve Dangle lost his fucking mind about, Mitch Marner, for some fucking reason, does this absurd backhand no-look spin pass to center ice right into the hands of Florida forwards who are coming downhill, who just skate it right back into the zone to get behind the D and score the goal. That's just a foolish decision on the player's part in front of the goaltender. So while I understand he's the one giving up the goals, the guys in front of him aren't really giving him much of a chance to actually respond. So I don't know. Again, I think it's a twofold thing here. And for me, it just looked like at a certain point they just stopped trying. Not to mention Florida really capitalized on their power play opportunities last night because they keep taking taking stupid penalties. Like, you know that Florida is trying to goad you. They're trying to get you to take fucking penalties. And you just can't resist. You just can't not do something. My God. Lay off. Like, they're going to do this to you. Don't take the unnecessary fucking penalty. I don't know. Obviously, it's clearly a lot harder than I'm giving it credit for, so.
Well, and let's just say this. I mean, if you're talking about Marner and Toronto's big stars have to step up and actually play their best hockey, because Florida's are.
Yeah.
Like Verhaeghe, Barkov, Lundell, Losterrainen, Kachuk, Bennett, Marchand, and Reinhart all have at least 8 points in 10 games. Reinhart leading the team with a point per game in the playoffs right now.
Florida has 17 different goal scorers, by the way.
Yeah, their depth is showing up, but their stars are scoring consistently.
Yeah.
8 goals in 10 games for these guys, 9 in 10, and Reinhart with the point per game. This is insane numbers. They are all showing up frequently. If one of them has an off night, someone else is there, and it is balance on this attack. There are too many players who have been here, done this before, especially when you talk about the pickup of a guy like Marchand. Like, that is an insane steal that Florida was able to accomplish.
Yeah, no kidding. He's been big for them. And yeah, when you talk about stars stepping up, people constantly say that Toronto's, core 4 has to step up, and it's a bit of a tired narrative, but I mean, it's not wrong. And yes, they used Mitch Marner again for this example, and I feel bad that Mitch Marner is like the whipping boy for Toronto. I am genuinely shocked that he's stated so many times that he wants to stay there, but he has 9 goals across 6 years of playoffs. Mikko Rantanen has 9 goals this year alone. Like, that's a star stepping up. Austin Matthews, I don't even think has a goal in this series. The only guy who's consistently showing up as part of that core 4 is William Nylander. And obviously he hasn't scored in the last 2 fucking games. And when we talk about the stars stepping up, everybody says, oh, they have to step up. They have to do this. When have they stepped up? When have they ever stepped up? They haven't. And the entire time that this has been together, these guys have never stepped up. And so that's why, as much as I want Toronto to win, I have to be critical at this moment in time because they haven't stepped up. And so how can I believe that they're going to step up tomorrow when it's do or die when they never have?
Yeah, I mean, they never have. And I mean, we're talking with the core four and everything, and they always hype up Nyes, and you've got Domi, and you've got all these names, but how much are they actually showing up? Because three of them, Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, 10, 12, and 15 points in these playoffs, respectively. They're outdoing anything Florida's doing in those games, but it really doesn't matter if those are all assists and that we're all beating up on another team in the last series more so than this one. So, doesn't add up to success. I mean, you can't be counting on guys like Tavares and Pacioretty. Each have been respectable, but they're getting up there in age. You can't be counting on them to be your generation for your offense. And their depth, just at least in this series, is not showing up nearly in the way Florida's is. It's really showing the difference between a contender and a pretender. A core four does not a team make. That's one in a third lines, and that isn't enough.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready to move on to the last series here, unless you have anything else that we want to whip for Toronto with. And I mean, all this is to say, we're being very critical of Toronto, but I have to give Florida some credit here, man. Those guys just know how to show up and fucking play. And I thought, with all the staff losses, with everything else that has happened, 2 years of finals runs, they be out of fucking gas. Not even fucking close. Not even close. And now Toronto has to go into Florida and try to not get eliminated.
And I honestly, the last thing I have to say is reverse sweeping coming. I know it's not a 5-game winning series, but they're about to win 4 straight. It counts in my book.
It's actually very similar to what happened with the Avs in Vegas in round 2, not so many years ago. Colorado won the first 2 games against Vegas, and then from there, Vegas just won every single game, and the series was over. So, yeah, it can and will happen. So, yeah, I think you were saying that, I don't know if you said this before we started recording or after, that pretty much all of these series might not even go 6 games minus the 1 that's already guaranteed. So kind of crazy, the discrepancy and disparity in round 2. I will say, though, the Capitals Carolina series, those games were close. And I mean, tonight, Carolina just got that insane goal line, last second goal from Svechnikov. Definitely could have seen that one going into many overtimes. It was a close game. But then, like, Edmonton versus Vegas, it really wasn't as close as it to be honest. So,
yeah, I think Edmonton versus Vegas was the letdown. But really quickly, just to say what you're right about the Canes and Caps, but that's what the Canes want. They want a close game. That is what the defensive team wants. The Capitals needed to be able to use all that offense that was in that President's Trophy hunt and run up the score. And they were not able to do that. That was they needed to outrun the Canes because the Canes were able to just outlast, wait for their opportunities. They bent but did not break. They did not buckle and waited to capitalize on the Capitals' mistakes. And they would just shoot the puck more. That was not on purpose, y'all. I do a lot of them on purpose, but that was not on purpose. But they outshot the Capitals in this series. And like you were saying, that the Capitals needed to be doing the reverse of that if they were ever going to win the series. So whether the games were close or not, in a sense, it wasn't the style of play that the Capitals needed to be successful.
Yep. Well, and I mean, and thankfully, Ovi's kind of done everything that I think Ovi wants to do. You always want to win more Stanley Cups, obviously. But Ovi's had an amazing career. Not that he's retiring next year, but he will retire. Or not that he's retiring this year. He will retire next year. So, yeah. But, I mean, he's obviously done what he set out to do. But last series here. Some days I wish the Avalanche did not trade Mikko Rantanen. I do miss the player, but it is more so that I am sick of hearing the story and the jeering from the harsh tongues of fans and media alike. Because the only way that this was a winning scenario is if the Avs themselves won, which is incredibly hard to do with or without the Moose. The Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy in sports to win for a reason. But I think that we would have been hearing the story we're hearing now, regardless of if we traded him or not, because if the Avs didn't trade Mikko, then ran into a playoffs with a team that would have not been nearly as deep with, for example, Casey Middlestat and likely no Charlie Coyle, or Charlie Coyle at second line center for Middlestat, and the Avs could have then still lost to Dallas anyway. Then we would have been getting the, quote, Avs should have traded Mikko, unquote, when he left in free agency. If we signed him, all that money is locked into 3 high-end players, and we see how well that's working out with other teams. The Avs did trade him, but no one had any way of knowing, at least from my perspective, that he would end up in Dallas and would ultimately be a part of the Avs' undoing. But he isn't the sole reason, but Hollywood couldn't even write a script that was that good. I also have zero faith in the Jets. I hope they prove me wrong, but I have zero faith in them.
Yeah, I think it was it's not a storybook ending. Whatever's the opposite of that, but you're absolutely correct. The storyline is... Yeah, a living nightmare. It is impeccably written. It could be a movie someday with how fast these streaming services are pumping out documentaries these days. Don't put it past them. But unfortunately, Avs fans, yourself and all of us out here in Colorado are just going to hear it in the media for years to come.
Oh yeah.
Because it was truly damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're right, because either the Avs are locked in, and granted, we don't know what happens. Maybe Mikko goes off for the hat tricks for the Avs and sends Dallas packing, but you're right. The depth would have been a serious issue for the Avalanche, and Mikko still didn't show up early on in that series. It was only late in there, so do the Avs make it in a 7-game series? Who knows? There's too many what-ifs, but you're right. If it wasn't guaranteed he would stay, the Avs hedged their bets and tried to keep their cup window open longer and not be locked in to a Toronto situation. With how much money shelled out to their top guys, and it's right now in the near term, the short term, it feels
shitty.
Like, yeah, it feels shitty, but we don't know yet. Like, just because Carolina has still made the playoffs, just because Dallas is on this run, we don't know what the outcome's going to be. If neither of those two teams win the cup and then the Avalanche bounce back and win it next year, do you think people are going to talk shit anymore? So I think these things come and go in waves, and even if right now it feels shitty, like you said, I have hope it'll get better.
Exactly, and that's the tough part. Like I said, all you can do to silence everybody is to win. So I'm hoping that, well, I don't want to say hoping, but feeling that the Avs will come back next year, and that's the hard part, is you have to wait an entire year. Now we have to sit with bated breath as we watch the Stars go on the run that we feel like we should have been going on. And if the Avs would have won the series, if they could have held on for fucking 10 more minutes, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Nobody would be saying anything. They would be looking to Chris McFarland like he's a fucking genius. But now, it's the totally other way, where everybody wants to call for his job. And I'm even though I brought it up myself, I'm sick of talking about it. And I'm hoping at some point we don't have to talk about it anymore. And eventually we won't, right? Everybody will be settled into their teams because Mikko signed an 8-year deal with the Avalanche, with the Stars. So eventually it'll just be Dallas Stars, Mikko Rantanen. And at least that's what I hope. But I mean, it was one of the most blockbuster trades of the last decade. So wouldn't surprise me if we hear about this for many years to come. And obviously it just makes the rivalry between Dallas and Colorado, I think, all the stronger now for many years to come. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how this ultimately plays out over the course of, I think, the next 5 years is a safe bet, wouldn't you say, Dom?
Yeah, I'd say 5 years, both of those teams are in cup windows. I mean, Who knows? Maybe it goes longer depending on the longevity of these players, but 5 years for certain. And yeah, I mean, you want a great way to. I don't know if you can silence it, but you can block it out with some more noise. Crosby to the Avs would have a lot of noise in the other direction. So who knows? Maybe what you've been calling for all this time is the antidote to this crisis.
I hope so, but I mean, it feels like almost like a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning situation now, and now, like the Patriots were the Colts' wall, or really Peyton Manning's wall in the playoffs. Dallas is Colorado's. I don't think there's any denying that, and now you have that figurehead on the other team in the form of Mikko Rantanen. So right now, the Avalanche have to prove that they can win, and in all fairness, they didn't win with Mikko Rantanen the last 2 years, so after the Cup win, so I guess not much change after that. But I believe that this Avalanche team can win and go on deeper runs. That's just the tough part, is you have to go past Dallas. And I truly believe that, I've said it, and I do believe it, that there was no other team in the West that could have beat the Avalanche. I really believe that they could have beaten everybody else pretty handedly.
I would say not only no other team in the West, but no other team in the league. And I mean, let's just look at this division. I mean, you are going to have to play each other. I mean, do we know is Utah going to be legit? Is Nashville going to be legit? There's so many what ifs with St. Louis. I mean, Minnesota seems to be there, but not really, and fall short. It really does feel like for the next 5 years, whether it's in the first round or in the in the divisional championship in the second round, you're going to see Colorado versus Dallas at some point, and you just have
Pretty
to win
much,
that matchup.
It's a guarantee.
These two teams
almost
are too built. They're just too built. And sure, Winnipeg can go on these runs all they want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what Winnipeg does. And Minnesota would really have to just step up another level, just go up to another gear to truly be able to compete with them in the playoff time. I mean, St. Louis made it interesting this year, but again, they gave Winnipeg a run. Winnipeg is not Dallas or Colorado. And we're seeing that right now in this series between Winnipeg and Dallas. So I really do think one of these two teams is going to win that quad, if you will, and go to the conference finals for each of the next 5 years. And so there's no getting around it. It really comes down to put up or shut up between these two teams, and only one can get through.
I do hope that, in some ways, I'm glad we played them in the first round, because I would have liked to have sent them home early. In other ways, I do see the idea of, wanting them to play later, because I think both of these teams were deserving to go on deep runs, although I wish I'd never want Dallas to go on a deep run. But you know what I'm trying to say. And I'm genuinely shocked that the Jets are in the second round, because Connor Hellebuck has the worst save percentage out of any goaltender. The Jets cannot win on the road. So I suppose the only reason they are still in these playoffs is because they had the home ice advantage. And that is literally the only reason why. And it's remarkable how well they've been able to flex that. However, Dallas stole a game from them on home ice. So that then therefore means, mathematically, if we go by the trend that we've been seeing, even if the Jets win here tonight, fucked. And there's no nice way of putting that. This team, to me, is just, they just don't show up in the playoffs. I mean, the guys in front of Hellebuck can try a trial, they might, but he's not showing up. He can step in front of a camera and say, I need to be better, I will be better, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't really do it. Like, yeah, he had a shutout. Doesn't really change the fact that he's gotten absolutely lit up for the last 2 years, for the last 3 years.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, when you're talking about Winnipeg showing up, it can't just be Winnipeg's fans showing up for a whiteout every game. That they're showing up. I mean, when we talk about that, they're showing up way more than the players on the ice, and certainly more than Hellebuck, of all people. So how does he go from the best goaltender in the regular season to the literal worst in the playoffs?
Not to mention the Jets themselves were the number one team in many other major statistical categories.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right there. It's fascinating. It's baffling. It's so odd. Like we've talked about before, there shouldn't be any one reason explanation. Teams that are this good for this many games should not be so bad over a smaller sample size. So it's really hard to fathom and to explain what's happening, that leads them to collapse every year, especially if they have this home ice advantage. They should be able to, if they hold serve, it works out. They play more games, but it gets them there, right? And if they can't even do that, then again, it doesn't. That's why I say it's Dallas versus Colorado, really, for the Central for the next 5 years, whether they play in the first round or in the second. I mean, and that's, I think, what you're saying, and that's what sucks, is that no matter what, they have to play each other in one of the two first rounds. And what you were saying is these two teams were caliber. These two teams were two of the top three teams that were most likely to win the cup coming into this playoffs. And so, that when you have two cup favorites clash in the first round, one team is going home far too early.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it, but it doesn't change the fact that they're sitting at home while the other team goes on, and other teams continue to go on, even if they're possibly perceived as less deserving. Either of these teams is in the Pacific instead. These two teams run through their respective divisions and meet in the conference finals. Yeah. Like, I would take either of them to deal with, honestly, and then you get to see the Avs versus Edmonton. Like, do we need some slight conference realignment here? I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, but, like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm throwing shit out there, throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Well, and this idea is not strictly my own. I just want to put that out there right now. It's just an opinion that I happen to agree with, that the Avalanche, I think, with a lot more certainty going into this offseason and going into next season, especially with Gabriel Landeskog, because that's been their biggest hurdle every year, which now thankfully has an answer, and it's the best possible answer that you could have. Know how they can, in theory, operate this offseason, right? And so my hope is then that going into October, they have a more solidified roster that is not in so much turmoil and injury chaos throughout the season. And they can use that entire season to actually create full chemistry. Whereas it would not surprise me, or it will really, with this season, sorry, I'm also getting distracted by the Jets Stars game. With this season, they did a lot to improve at the deadline. And I don't think that was all for nothing. But they didn't have a lot of time to develop chemistry. And I mean, as we pointed out, chemistry can really matter. And so I'm hoping that they can use this offseason to create a more solidified lineup, and then going into the trade deadline can add those just complementary pieces that don't drastically change the outfit of the team like it did this year, which again, I think was still important for setting up the makeup for the team next year. But if you can have a team that is consistent all the way through, you can probably pick up the wins that you missed out on going up through December. Because ultimately, the point I'm trying to make here is we have clearly seen that home ice is important. We argued about it back and forth, kind of going into the playoffs. It's clearly important, and it's important for the Avs. You tell me that they had Game 7 at home, I think it would have been a different story. I really do. So they need those extra wins because they probably could have beaten out Dallas at a couple different points. They just were missing a couple points here and there. So have that solid team, have that solid roster, get those complementary pieces, and go in and kick their ass.
Yeah, and that's not to say this deadline was still a masterclass on what to do, but we've talked about this before as well. You can't build your core in free agency. You can't build your core at the deadline either. You have to have that solidified. And so more time with Marty Necas in there, with everybody that they picked up. As many of them as they can retain are the ones that still have years left. Having a whole season to build that chemistry, have that depth from the start, I think that's absolutely going to be a recipe for success. Having Mackenzie Blackwood for a whole year and not having to deal with Forgy early on, that's going to be another huge improvement to look forward to. I mean, you have the woodshed from the start of the season next year. Huge improvement right there. So don't be too sad or despondent, Avs fans, because I know there's going to be the news stories and the headlines as long as Rantanen and the Stars are still in the playoffs and not, as you put it, Corey, off golfing or on their couch. But it's, that it will, this too shall pass, because next season this team is still set up for a playoff run, for a deep run, and they'll be a legitimate contender once again. And as another positive for all you Denverites who are listening to this tomorrow, you probably already know this, but the Nuggets did win Game 6 to force Game 7. So something positive for all of you Denver fans to look forward to in the here and now to block out all the noise. You beat a team from Texas. Oh, no. It's Oklahoma City. Never mind. It's close.
Well,
it's close.
According to my basketball friends, they played incredibly well as I've kept up with them. Well, I knew the Stars and the Jets, mostly the Stars, would be the thing that I'd have the most to say about. And there's just a lot that still feels like, I can't lie. I'm sad, everyone. I'm genuinely sad because I feel like I should still be watching the Avs playing. And there's only, I think, so much that my words convey here. But it's silly because it's hard and it feels hard. You don't ever like to see your team go home, especially when you don't feel like you should be seeing your team go home. Like, this is no offense to the Canadiens. They're going to have a great team to come here soon, but I don't think any of the Canadiens fans, as much as they love their team, probably expected them to go very far. I think everybody expected the Avalanche to go far, and especially me. So, and it's not because, I'm worried about looking stupid or anything. I do that all by myself. I'm not too worried about it. It's genuinely because I love this team. I love hockey. And it's hard watching everybody else doing what it feels like you should be doing. I say you as if I'm on the team, but you get the point that I'm trying to make.
And I think it's not only that, the pain of watching this. I think also, from hearing you, man, this is also a deeper pain this year because it did come at the hands of a beloved player, and for you. Especially, I'm not trying to take away from all of you who are listening, but this man here is coming here and working to try to talk with me and talk with you all and just talk about it, and that's hard. The fact that you're still showing up and still bringing the passion and the energy and talking about the playoffs, knowing your team isn't in, is hard. This is different. This is a new pain, I think, for you this year, and I just want to validate that, man, because in previous years, yeah, you can feel it, but you don't necessarily have to talk about it. You can grieve silently. So Thank you for being honest and just sharing the raw emotions and going through the process and keeping this going through the playoffs with me, because I think it's worth it, and I hope it's worth it to our audience. But I mean, to me, I value it, so I appreciate you, man, and thank you for just sharing. I can talk about the Sharks and my pain all day, but it doesn't compare. Because I again, like you said about the Canadiens, I knew they weren't making the playoffs. I could just hope for 20 wins this year, which they barely scraped out. So it's a little easier to not feel it as much when you see it coming. Whereas with the Avs, they really did. I mean, I'm not the homer you are, and I legitimately picked them to win the Cup this year because I thought they could do it. And so I'm just as much. I don't feel the pain the same way you do, but I'm just as shook that they are sitting at the couch too early.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to say that I've gotten over it because I definitely have in years past, but I really haven't. It's been hard. It's been hard to sit with, not to mention that teams that I genuinely do not like are moving forward. And I mean, I'm serious. I genuinely do not like these organizations, and that's okay. Plenty of people don't like the Avalanche either. You don't have to, not that you're listening to this podcast, but yeah, it's just hard, but I won't continue to perseverate on it. But that's all I have to say in our round 2 update. I do have, obviously there are no more Avs in the playoffs, but I do actually have, I said 4 players of the week, but I'll more call it 4 players of the series so far. See if you can pick up on a theme here. So for the Vegas Golden Knights and Edmonton series now being over, I actually had to change my pick. At first, it was Riley Smith for that insane 0.4 second goal, but it is now changed to Stuart Skinner. For the Canes and Caps series, it's Freddie Anderson. For the Toronto Florida series, it is Matthew Nyes, who seems to be the only Toronto Maple Leaf who's showing up on a consistent basis. And for the Dallas Stars and Jets series, it is Jake Ottinger. It's Jake Ottinger.
And shout out to the Big BG taking a big lead in the bracket challenge.
Oh yes,
you have our respect.
You're totally right. We have to do a quick bracket challenge update. So thank you for reminding me, Dom. Let me go ahead and check our league here. My leagues. There we go. Captain Avalanche Fancast. So yes, indeed. Way to go to Big BG, who is in a commanding lead with 94 points. Dom from the Tank Dom, you are in second place solidly. Common Av Steamroll, you're in third place with 66 points. Happy Gilly, you are in fourth place with 65. Blue Jay, you are in fifth with 59. My apologies. I am in sixth place, second to last, with 56 points. And Erica Hahn, you are in last with 43 points. Let's see if you picked even anything correct. You picked the Jets.
There's only two.
You picked the Jets in Carolina. That's it.
Yeah, there's only two players left alive because of the Big BG's lead. The only one who can catch them currently with points available is Happy Gilly.
So way to go to Big BG, who has so far gotten Carolina going pretty good. My second chance bracket, I did end up picking Carolina, so go me in that regard. My second chance bracket once again is wrong in the West in that I picked fucking Vegas because I'm dumb. But yeah, we'll see how the rest of it plays out. But I do have Carolina right going on to the conference final. Woo. Yeah, but there's your bracket update, everybody. Are you ready for today's fun fact? It's a spicy one.
Oh yeah, deal it to me.
Alrighty, everyone. Mason Marchment is a much despised figure amongst the Colorado Avalanche fan base, and this loathing existed long prior to this year's series that only served to intensify that strong dislike of one of the league's most controversial skaters. But, like everyone, Mason Marchment had a father, beginning his career all the way back in 1988 with 2 games for the original Winnipeg Jets franchise. Defenseman Brian Marchment played 926 career games across 9 different franchises, including the Hartford Whalers, San Jose Sharks, and others. For 14 games in 2002 and 3, the Colorado Avalanche. In those 14 games, he managed to rack up 33 penalty minutes, and it, in fact, with all of his penalty minutes, lands him at 31st all-time on most penalty minutes in league history at 2,307. With a stat like that, it is of no surprise that he was once known as the league's dirtiest player while playing for the Sharks, and carried around quite the unsavory reputation. Consequently, it makes perfect sense that Mason has carried on his father's legacy on the ice and shares his same piercing blue eyes.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't say the words blue-eyed bastard at any point there. I'm proud of you.
I thought about it, but, I got to present the fun fact in a cordial way. Not to mention that Brian Marchment tragically passed away at the age of 54, so didn't want to spit on his grave too much, but doesn't change the fact that he was not a nice guy on the ice. And of course, somehow the Avalanche are connected to the Marchment family, as are the Sharks. So I thought it was kind of interesting that both of our teams are a part of the Marchment legacy.
Yeah, that is interesting. Obviously, neither of us want to be part of a dirtiest player in the league legacy. That's never something we want to do, but maybe he can make it onto. he can make it onto our part 2 heroes versus villains the next time we do that segment
very
and be
well
on the
might.
expanded list.
He very well might. I genuinely did not know anything about him, but people have some interesting things to say about Brian Marchment. So he would be fun to maybe dive into a little more. Because again, 31st all time with most penalty minutes. Like, everybody, you might not think that's a lot, but let's just do a quick Google search. How many players have ever played in the NHL? There we go. Yeah, so roughly 8,000 players. I'm seeing a couple different numbers here. I'm seeing 7,051, 8,000. So between roughly 7 and 8,000 players since 1917. That's a lot of players. So to be 31st on a list of several thousand, that's pretty darn high.
Certainly is.
Yeah. Sorry, Dom, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that certainly is. I mean, mathematically, what is that percent wise? I mean, it's top 1% for sure, right?
Probably. I don't know. I don't want to do the math. You're the aerospace engineer. You do it.
You're right. So 1% would be 80 out of 8,000. So yeah, I could do that math.
We actually, everybody, an additional thing, have a charity for you today. It is Hockey Fights Cancer. That is because Josh Manson, whose mother, I believe, suffered from breast cancer. Hold on, I don't want to say that just without knowing. Josh Manson, and she did unfortunately pass away. And I misspoke. She had melanoma. So apologies, I did misspeak there. But his mother, Lana Manson, Josh has been recognized as a Hockey Fights Cancer champion. So he's a big representative for that organization. So we will post this link in the description of the video if you'd like to go donate, but it is v.org//Josh Manson. You can donate to Hockey Fights Cancer Research. And I mean, that's always a good cause to donate to. Obviously, Josh is very closely tied to that cause. So, I mean, if you're an Avalanche fan, then I think it's kind of a no-brainer here. So yeah, just wanted to shout that out. It came across my radar. So a really cool cause for a really good reason, and represented by one of Colorado fan favorite, Josh Manson. Yeah.
And it's a great cause. And if you're not a Colorado Avalanche fan, but you still listen to us, we appreciate you as well. And that's the same foundation we've mentioned previously that was tied to the Great Chase that Alex Ovechkin was working with. So it's a great thing from around the league. So no matter whether you root for the Avs or otherwise, this is a really great charity that you should consider, at least look into. But our hearts do go out to all of those who have a relative or who are currently suffering from cancer or have in the past. And we wish you all of the best of luck in your fight.
Absolutely. Well, Dom, I'm gonna say the outro. Do you have anything else you want to say? I'm going to say it.
Do it, bro.
Well, everyone, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. Did you know there is a comment section where you can leave your thoughts and questions? If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche Sharks or just hockey in general, reach out and leave it below and we'll be happy to try and answer it. There is also a unique poll for you to interact with every episode. The best thing you can do if you like what we're doing here is to follow us on whatever platform you're using and share this podcast everywhere you can, whether that's with your mouse or your mouth. I'm Captain Avalanche Cory.
And this is Dom from the Tank.
Check out our new episodes every week. Thanks, everyone. Get us to 20 followers. Hit that follow button, people.